investigations through prosecution and beyond, because it does take a full team effort. So most of you guys, if you came to any of these presentations before, or any human trafficking presentation, you probably already know this, but I'm required to tell you. So what is human trafficking? A lot of times people think of the movie Taken or what have you, and we know that's not how it normally occurs. It's the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or attaining of a child for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. Under federal laws and state laws, sex trafficking, such as prostitution, pornography, exotic dancing, does not require there to be force, fraud, and coercion if the victim is under 18. So even if there's no one making that child do anything, that child is on their own and saying they're making that decision. They cannot make that decision if they're under 18. They will be clearly a victim of sex trafficking or possibly labor trafficking, and we would pursue them as a victim of the crime. So DCF investigates all areas of trafficking. A lot of times when people think of DCF, they think of families. However, we investigate all areas. We don't normally use the word pimp. If I say trafficker, that's what I'm referring to. A lot of people don't understand exactly what trafficker is, but a trafficker would be a pimp. So if there's trafficker-led trafficking, gang-led, familial-led, which is a family member or caregiver survival, meaning there's no third party. Again, there's no one that's making them. It could be they need a food, they need shelter, they need clothing, they need a ride out of town, they might have a drug habit that they're trying to support, or they just might need a new pair of shoes. If there's no third party, it's always going to fall under that survival trafficking category. And then we also investigate labor trafficking. We began investigating this back in 2009, and we knew pretty well immediately within 3 months of investigating these cases, it wasn't like Taken. Was not really identifying the international victims. We were identifying our own children right here locally. And then we had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what are we going to do once we identify what services are out there. Where safe homes? Where are they? Where can we put these children when we're identifying? So we had 43 reports back in 2009, and you can see the reports continued to come in. Now, a lot of times people are like, well, why? Florida ranks 3rd, by the way, in the United States, according to the Polaris Project or the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And a lot of people always ask, why is that? Well, we have a lot of things going on in Florida, right? We have a lot of tourism, we have a lot of sporting events, we have a lot of music events, a lot of things that happen. However, we also have done a great job with advocacy and awareness in Florida, right? So we have some of the strongest laws in the nation against human trafficking. So therefore, when you have more awareness, like tonight, of folks coming out, they know what to look for, they know how to identify, and they know who to call. So that is another reason why we had that heightened amount of reports that came in, because of those awareness, the communities was making those calls. And then we had legislative changes where law enforcement was required to be trained. Healthcare is now required to be trained. Hospitality, as of last year, now has to be trained. Educators, students now have to be trained. So more people are getting the training to know how to identify and know the numbers to call. So that's another reason why there's an increase in the number of hotline calls, not only to our DCF hotline, but also the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So last year we had 2,198 reports. That's all on children, and that's only in the state of Florida. So folks, it is happening everywhere. And it's definitely happened right here in our own community. Okay, so back last year, we did our fiscal year, which starts in July 1 and goes to June 30th. We had 329 cases right here in Northeast. As you can see, Northwest had 234, Central 481, and Suncoast had 551, which is the most. But when we pulled that per capita, so we broke it down per 100 children, that changed things dramatically. So actually our Northwest region had the most cases when you pull it per capita, and our Northeast region came in second with that. So that should really break it down on how many reports we're actually seeing coming in. So here in Duval County, we had 132 reports. 34 of those reports were verified, 28 were non-substantiated, and 57 was no indicated. So a lot of times people look at this and then they compare it with law enforcement stats. You have to understand, the way it works, normally federal nexus holds the highest proof to be able to prosecute those cases. And then of course, there's a state nexus as well. Well, we have almost our own nexus. We do not have to have a victim that says it's happening, because as you guys probably know, a lot of times that doesn't happen. They don't self-identify at that point. They don't recognize that they're a victim. They feel like they're in love with the perpetrator, or this is their husband, or this is their boyfriend, or their partners, and what's happening. Or either there's a lot of coercion going on. There's a lot of threats going on that's keeping them from talking and explaining exactly what's happening in their life because they're scared. So therefore, a lot of times they don't identify. We don't have to have that, because the way we look at it is the surrounding circumstances. If we can have parents that saying this is happening, teachers saying it's happening, we have information from their social media accounts, we can pull all that together to put the pieces together to know that they're involved in trafficking, and therefore we can verify it and put in services. And we still do not have to have that victim stating that's happening, hoping that once the survivor mentors are working with them, once the service providers are working with them, that they will eventually come to the conclusion that they are a victim of trafficking and that they will continue with those services and help them get out of the life. Nassau had 7 and Clay had 5. So it's again happening in every county, even our most smallest counties. So you hear the term CSEC. Child prostitution is completely stricken from our legal language. As of October 1, 2016, law enforcement can no longer arrest a minor for prostitution. That language has been replaced with commercial sexual exploitation of a child, or CSEC. So if you hear the term CSEC, that is what it is. It is the use of any person under the age of 18 for sexual purposes in exchange for money, goods, or services, or the promise of money, goods, and services. It's very important to understand that promise piece. Promise is solicitation. It's illegal to solicit a child for sexual activities, sexual acts. That should still be called in through the hotline, even if that child says no. So if a child's at a bus stop or train station and is solicited by someone asking to make fast cash, to take off their clothes, or to pose for a picture, or commit a sexual act, and that child says, absolutely not, you're disgusting, I don't want to have anything to do with you, it should still be coming in through the hotline. Because that kid said no, is the next kid at the next bus stop going to say possibly yes, right? So we need to know there's a trafficker out there soliciting a child. Same thing if it happens online. It still needs to come through the hotline. You need to call it in. If a child is approached on a social media app, on a website, it should still be called into the hotline so we can try to figure out and identify who that trafficker is that's soliciting children. A commercial sex act means any sex act on account of which anything of value is given to or received by any person. That could be for prostitution, exotic dancing, or pornography. Excuse me. Anything of value. It could be a piece of bubble gum, it could be candy, it could be money, it could be for a new shopping trip, whatever. If there is an interaction that states that if you do this sexual act, I will give you this, and it's something that you can place a value on, that should be called into the hotline as well. We have to remember this is not just just a girl issue, just a female issue, just a woman or a girl issue. Boys are victims as well. It crosses the gamut. It could be boys, it could be girls, it could be women, it could be men. Our LGBTQ plus population is also targeted into trafficking. So just don't assume it's one or the other. Normally between 11 and 14, there is a trafficker involved. It's someone that's selling them. After the age of 14, normally, not always, but a lot of times 15 to 19, there's no third party. They're on their own. And that's something that's different when you look at male victimization opposed to female victimization. So we also investigate labor trafficking, so bonded labor, forced labor, and child labor. All falls in those categories. If it's involving a child and it's violating any of our labor laws, we're going to investigate that as well. Social media is the huge issue that we're having right now, and that's the #1 way to recruit minors. So you got to think, if a trafficker goes to the town center and they need to hold a conversation, meet up, try to talk to someone, How many of you guys have children? How difficult is it to talk to them? Their communication skills in this generation is not the best, right? Because what do they like to do? Right? Text. They like to be on apps. They like to be on game systems. They don't like to communicate. They don't like to talk to you. Well, they don't like to talk to other people too. People scare them. People make them nervous. Even in the best of ways, even if it's a teacher or someone they should be talking to. They don't communicate very well. But they communicate very well on social media. They communicate very well when they're texting and when they're on game systems. And that is what traffickers know. If they go to the town center, they might be able to have a conversation with 1 or 2 kids. But online, they can reach hundreds of kids within minutes. So they'll send out those friend follow requests, and they oftentimes will target particular schools. And they'll send those friend and follow requests, and it's a snowball effect. Because you have Timmy and Tammy get on there, they see a guy, appears to be good looking, or see a girl, beautiful girl, contacting a male or a female. And they think, oh, they look pretty chill, they look pretty cool, I like what they're posting, they're funny, except friend follow. Well, then Jimmy and Jane gets on there, and they said, well, Timmy and Tammy's friends with them. They must be okay, right? Friend follow. And before long, you got multiple kids within a school that's following a trafficker online. Your kids post everything online. They can read through it. They can tell when you're fighting with mom and dad. They made bad grades. They broke up with boyfriend and girlfriend. Whatever's happening in their life, they post. Even if they don't say it directly, they can figure it out. And they're right there waiting for that vulnerability to contact them. So they're constantly chatting. Every time they post a picture, they like it, they comment. And then it becomes private messaging. And from that private messaging, I'm catching feels for you. I like you. Send me more pictures. And in the beginning, it would be pretty innocent pictures, and then it may go to maybe some bathing suit pics, or if it's a guy, maybe a chest pic, maybe at the beach or something like that. That will continue on for a period of time. These traffickers have an investment with these kids. It may be days, it could be weeks, it could be months. We've even seen some that has been year-long conversations with folks. They invest their time, constantly preying on that vulnerability. And then I'm catching feels, I love you, send me private pics. And they'll send pictures of themselves. Usually it's stock pictures, it's not actually who they are. They'll send pictures, the kids will send pictures back. Now they got them. Because who are they friends with? If they send a nudie to this person and they tell you, if you don't continue to do what I tell you to do, I'm going to post those pictures, who are they friends with? All their friends from school, right? Probably mom and dad, aunt and uncle, maybe grandpa, maybe some sports leaders or coaches, club leaders are on their social media. And they know they're going to get in trouble for posting those pictures, or if those pictures get out there, or get in trouble for sending those pictures to someone. So they continue to do whatever they have to do to keep those pictures out, so they can keep sending more pictures, more graphic, start live webcamming. And then they're going to tell them, I need you to pack a bag. You're going to be gone for a day. Or you may just be gone after school, because a lot of these kids are in school and the trafficking is occurring in between school hours. So when they get out of school at 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock and parents think they're at friend's house or think they're at practice, no, they could be trafficking them during that time frame. And they may tell them, take an Uber, go to a hotel, go to room 232, commit this act, take an Uber back, and we'll get you home. Pack a bag, you're going to be gone a few days, you're going to Miami to a music event. You're going to go to a hotel, work a couple of days, and then come back home. Folks, why do you think you're getting so many of these alerts that stating that these kids are gone? And what do you hear? Last seen wearing, who they're possibly with. Usually that's when we're getting these cases and we're doing their scrubs on their phones or their apps or their devices and figuring out who they're communicating with. And usually they've been communicating with them for a long period of time, and mom and dad had absolutely no idea because they were not checking their social media. So you have to know what your kids are on. You have to be taking their devices. You have to be looking at it and see what apps they're downloading and what they're doing online. It's the #1 way. Every single case we audited last October had a social media recruitment piece. Either they were being recruited directly off of social media or they were being advertised on some type of an app. Every single one of them. So folks, they're using it. You have to be aware of that. These are some of the apps that are out there. This was put out by the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, but pretty much every sheriff's office has this that states the most dangerous apps that are out there for minors. And a lot of them obviously are some that you may already have. You know, a lot of people are on Snapchat. There's a lot of people that use Bumble. You know, there's a lot of people, TikTok, very, very common now. Almost every kid has TikTok. But it can be used in a negative light. Gangs are actively involved in sex trafficking. The difference between a lot of things that we see is violence happens almost immediately with gangs. So oftentimes when females are in gangs, they're either going to be jumped in, they're going to be sexed in, or they're going to be blessed in. So the most common for girls is sexed in. So they have to roll a die or dice. Whatever they roll is how many gang members have to gangbang them in front of the gang members. So sex starts immediately, right? Sexual violence starts immediately. They believe their role in the gang is sex. If a male gang member says, I want to have sex with you, they cannot say no. They have to submit. So that's another way that sexual violence is occurring. We know that oftentimes they're going to outsource them. They're going to sell them for sex because they can make just as much money, if not more money, by selling them than they can their drugs. They'll have the girls also run the drugs and run the guns for them. And again, they feel that this is their role within the gang. Gangs are very violent. They start with violence right away, so they make a lot of threats. And that's why it's so hard for us to investigate these cases, because it's so hard to get a victim to state what is happening. Whether it's a male or whether it's a female gang member, it's hard to get them to talk, because that's their family, that's their brotherhood, that's their sense of belonging. And not only that, they're scared. They know that if they talk, they're probably going to get killed or hurt, so therefore they're not going to say anything, and they'd rather stay in that situation than face the outcome of either being hurt, killed, or their family being hurt or killed. So again, these cases are probably one of the hardest that we're dealing with right now to try to get victims out of trafficking when it's a gang sex trafficking cases. So how do traffickers manipulate? There's a lot of psychological, a lot of trauma bonding. They're going to meet those basic needs. They're going to offer safety and security. There's a lot of psychological trauma bonding that goes into effect, and self-esteem also plays a part, because they bring them up and then they bring them back down. I always tell people it's like the military. Who, former military, current military? So when you're in the military and you get off that bus, do they say, come on in, sweeties, supper's ready? No. They tell you, get off the bus, why are you here? You're weak, you're never gonna make it, you're wasting my time, you're no better than the dirt off the bottom of my shoe. And constantly through boot camp, trying to get in the good graces of that drill sergeant, right? Trying to run the fastest, be the best marksman, whatever you have to do to shine, right? And by the end of boot camp, you feel like you're little Captain Americas, you can take on the world, you're the best soldiers out there. Flip it upside down and you have trafficking. So how the mind manipulation and the trauma bonding works in the beginning, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome. No one will love you like I do. Your parents don't understand you. They treat you like a little boy or a little girl. You're a grown man, you're a grown woman. Trafficking starts occurring. You disgust me. Who's going to love you after everything that they know you've done? Why are you trying to better yourself? Why are you trying to go to school? Why are you trying to work? The only thing you're ever going to be good at is sex. So why are you trying to do anything different? You're no better than the dirt off the bottom of my shoe. And they believe it. Just as those soldiers believed it when they graduated boot camp. It's the same way that our victims see themselves until we can get services in there, until we can get good mentorship and good support systems to wrap them, to help them understand they are worth more and they can do better. and they can succeed in life, and they don't need this negativity, because there's plenty of people there that can provide a positive outlook and provide a good safety and security for them to move on with their life. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, you guys, thanks for coming out. And we have Lisa Morello with FBI. She is a victim advocate, and she's going to come up here and talk to you about survivor voices.